Hello, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've got some companies that I want to talk about today that have had some news out that I think is very important, and I'm going to get started right away with Goliath Resources. They've been on quite a roll with putting out results and news. One of those news releases was back here on September the 18th. They announced that they had hit abundant visible gold, extensive sulfide-rich quartz breccia. This had up to 1% visible gold in certain parts of it, which is quite phenomenal. You don't really see that very often, and they've hit now on several holes multiple visible gold in around 40% of their holes. So I think they've got a lot of great news coming out off of this. Here's another one, 23.65 meters of abundant visible gold. 31 meters of strongly mineralized quartz breccia and stockwork. Here they show you some of the gold that they can see in their core, and they're getting this on a lot of holes. So I think that this company has a lot of great news. Here's that one, abundant visible gold nuggets up to 1.7 millimeters over 15.8 meters. As well as 19.15 meters with up to 1% visible gold and 4 millimeter nuggets. When you start seeing that kind of visible gold, it's almost a guarantee you're going to have quite spectacular results. And so after putting those news releases out, then on September the 20th, they announced that Rob McEwen and Crescat Capital to provide strategic investments in Goliath through a non-brokered private placement. Rob McEwen's putting in $1 million into the non-flow through. Rob is a legend in the mining business, not only as an operator of mines, but he's also a very successful investor in junior exploration companies, and he's often able to find good stories early, and I think that his timing is going to be quite spectacular in this. And then that afternoon they announced that they had upsized it from 5 million to 8.6 million, again with Rob McEwen doing $1 million into it. So this company has been drilling like crazy this year in the Golden Triangle. They were originally planned to do 18,000 meters. They ended up doing a little over 34,000 meters. And a lot of that is because of all the visible gold that they were seeing and some new zones that they're identifying through their drilling. And one of those new zones is where they got this up to 1% with visible gold with large chunks of visible gold. So I think they got a lot of great news ahead of them. And they are a sponsor of my shows. I've done several interviews with their management. You can find those on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News. Or on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. If you want to look on YouTube, it's Rocks and Stocks News. All right, the next company I want to talk about is Meridian Mining. Meridian announced that they intercepted shallow, high-grade gold, copper, gold, silver, and zinc, massive sulfides at St. Helena. They reported that they hit 14.9 meters at 3.1% copper equivalent, starting right at the surface, only 26.3 meters from the surface. They mentioned that Santa Helena's near-surface massive sulfides are hosted within a broader mineralized zone representing the next potential open pit target within the Cabakal belt. This is a second one, their main one, and this is a secondary one, but looking really spectacular. They've been doing geophysics and mapping, and they've identified a 1.1 kilometer near mine exploration extension to Santa Elena, doubling the area of interest beyond the 1 kilometer strike of the historical resource. So they're going in there where there was historical work done, and they're expanding on it quite significantly. As you can see from the highlighted hits, 14.9 of 3.1% copper equivalent, 6.7 meters at 4.3% copper equivalent, 19.1 of 1.3% from 8 meters below surface. Included in that was 4.9 meters at 4.6% copper equivalent. And then they've got a whole bunch more great results in there from their Cabakal program, where they're delivering excellent open pit numbers. What really excites me about this project is it's a VMS deposits, and VMS deposits tend to come in clusters. And Meridian owns a very large land package that likely encompasses all of the VMS deposits in an entire cluster. And the grades that they're seeing are quite spectacular. And the project's in Brazil. It's in a well-known geological region of Brazil. I think that they've got a hell of a shot of having a near-term gold producer here, or copper, gold, silver, and zinc producer. And it's wide open for exploration to find more of these VMS deposits. The two main ones, Cabakal and Santa Elena, are where they've been focusing most of their work, but they've got plenty of other targets, and I'm really optimistic about Meridian mining. And you want to do your homework. In fact, I recently did an interview with the company, and you can find that on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or you can also find it on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Alrighty, i-80 Gold just is amazing, the results that they continue to put out, not just from Ruby Hill, which is their highlighted or their best project, but they've also got a great project at Granite Creek and also at McCoy Cove. And look at these numbers: 15.6% zinc, 8.7% lead. So that's a 24% zinc lead combination with 420 grams of silver, 0.6 grams of gold over 40.4 meters. And that's something that's consistent with all of their projects. They don't just hit high grade, they hit high grade over significant thickness, which is not an easy thing to find in the mining space. And that's what they keep on doing at Ruby Hill. Here's from their East Hilltop. That was from the Blackjack zone. At East Hilltop, they had 14.9% zinc, 4.3 grams of gold, 284 grams of silver over 77.2 meters. Then at Ruby Deeps, they had 6.9 grams per ton gold over 50.7 meters. And what's interesting is that these three deposits are all in close proximity, but they're different styles of mineralization. Ruby Deeps is a Carlin trend gold system. East Hilltop is a CRD system, and Blackjack is the name's Skarn deposit. And right beside Blackjack, Skarn is on the other side of a fault is a sulfide deposit. So the Ruby Hill is without a doubt a world-class project. You can keep going back over many of their news releases, and you'll see all the phenomenal results. Tyler Hill said, and I quote, "The Ruby Hill program continues to yield exceptional results in multiple target areas, including the recent identification of a high-grade polymetallic CRD mineralization in the Blackjack zone. Step-out drilling is expanding mineralization in several zones, with all known horizons remaining open for expansion. We are also compiling the results of recently completed geophysical surveys that have identified multiple high-priority anomalies that will be tested in the future," end quote. So again, the Ruby Hill project, here's where you can see all the various different deposits. There's Blackjack. Over here is Ruby Deeps. Over here is the CRD mineralization. More of the CRD. They're getting over on this side of this fault, they're getting a sulfide deposit. It's without a doubt, a world-class project that will most definitely be a future mine with likely exceptional economics. Here's the sphalerite and galena sulfides that they're hitting, and really nice chunky stuff in there. And just again, I invite you to go check out their website. You can find all the various news releases from the Ruby Hill project, Blackjack, or Ruby Hill, Granite Creek, and McCoy Cove, and they just consistently put out fantastic results. And I'm very fortunate to have them as a sponsor of my shows, because Ewan Downey, who is a very well-respected and busy CEO, he always makes it a point to come on our shows and discuss the news after it's gone out, to add some insight into what he's seeing. I really appreciate that, and his sponsorship. And you can find those interviews on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or on the Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Alrighty, Delta Resources. Delta intersects 2.16 grams per ton of gold over 97.5 meters within a broader interval of 1.79 grams per ton of gold over 128 meters at Delta 1. What makes me really excited about this Delta 1 project is not only do they have these thick intersections of open pit type grades. Actually, they would be considered a very high grade for open pit. A lot of open pits these days are mining at 0.5 gram, so they're getting multiples of that in their thick near surface intersections. But also inside of that, they're getting some spectacularly high grades. Over 1,000 grams kind of stuff. And so that's a real sweetener, and who knows where that all comes from. The combination of having this open pit target and the super high grade really puts them into a unique situation, and they've got great infrastructure all around them. They got a really large land package. They're loaded up with cash. So this company is going to be drilling up a storm and putting out a lot of results. I mean, even look at in this latest batch, 37 grams or 37 grams per ton of gold over a meter, 10 grams, 51 grams, 14 grams, 24 grams. So there's this high grade component, and it's quite spectacular in some spots. I'm just going to bring up this one news release that just blew me away, and why I started covering the company, and invited their CEO to come on and do an interview. 1,636 grams of gold and 697 grams of gold over 1 meter. So it's got this super high grade element to it that is quite spectacular. So I think that this one, and surprisingly enough, that recent results, the stock went down quite significantly off of those results. It's a very strange market we're in right now. Companies that are putting out fantastic results are often not getting rewarded for that, but I think that that's more indicative of the sentiment in the market. And whenever the sentiment is that brutal, it's often a time that a turn is coming. I think the major mover of that will be stronger gold prices, and I think that that's. I think gold is just looking for an excuse to go much higher. And when it does, I think companies like Delta Resources will do very well in a stronger market. Alrighty, so the next company I want to talk about is Athena Gold. They're a sponsor of my shows. They drilled 1.02 grams per ton of gold over 51.8 meters and extended their shallow oxide gold discovery Excelsior Springs project in Nevada. Now, these are the kind of projects that have made a long history of many decades of mining, and this is a very handsome grade for an oxide gold deposit. And it's following up on where they had hit 3 other holes with very good grades as well. I think they've got an emerging, as you can see, where they've intersected the grades, and it's right at surface, and they're getting an interpretation of the geology and how to attack it. And the depth potential is wide open, and it's a very interesting story because not only are they getting precious metals, but they're also getting some sniffs of base metals. And that has me very curious as to what's happening deeper. I think that they've got a great project in Nevada. It's an oxide project. Here you can see that things are shaping up for a very nice zone in the right kind of rocks, and you can see good grades all over the place here, and even way over here. They're just getting started, really. They're probably only about 10 holes into drilling this thing, and I think it's going to turn out to be quite a spectacular project. Here's where they've been focused, but over here is also an area where I'm really interested because they've got this big IP anomaly over here at a junction of 2 faults. This one fault goes east to west, and then another one that goes north to south, and they meet right here, which is a very good conduit for mineralization to make its way up from deeper. And so Athena is a very exciting, very cheaply valued company that I don't think that they're really getting the kind of attention that they could for a oxide gold deposit, but that's more the nature of the market these days. And I think that as the market gets better, projects like Athena Gold's Excelsior Springs will gain a lot more attention. Galantas Gold is also a sponsor, and they had some news out that I'm quite enthusiastic about. They drilled their Joshua vein and intersected 13.1 grams per ton of gold, 91.6 grams per ton of silver over 2.5 meters. This mineralization is contained inside of an orogenic gold system, which is a vein system. And what is quite interesting in their near surface drilling in the first couple 100 meters is that they're getting these dilation zones inside of the veins. And what that means is that the rocks open up, and that allows more fluids carrying precious metals to make their way into the dilation zones and start to make significant deposits. And that's important for the contract mining that they're going to be doing on this project, and also for exploring, because you follow the dilation zones for your mining, but you also follow them for exploration. They start to indicate where you should be looking. And here's another dilation trend that hit 21.2 grams over 2.1 meters. That's the kind of thickness that you're going to see in these orogenic gold veins. And here's some very good looking rock where they're getting some visible gold. They talk about the dilation zones. As you can see, they point in a certain direction, and that's where you want to go to keep following the those zones deeper. And I think they're all pointing towards a fault, a structural where the gold-bearing fluids can make their way up, and then they sort of move into the rocks that are near it. And it's a pretty spectacular project. And then they've also got this VMS project, that their Gerlach project, that really has me excited as well, because they're already seeing massive sulfides. And what's interesting about the massive sulfides is that they're getting copper and gold in the system. And so those VMSs that are rich in copper and gold can be quite spectacular. And I think that they've got a cluster of them at their Gerlach project. They're doing a lot of work, so keep watch for more news. VR Resources is a project that I'm following quite closely, because they've got this diamond project that they've only drilled a few holes into what they call their Northway kimberlite. And in these it's a very large kimberlite, and inside of these large kimberlites, you can get multiple volcanic events. And in those different zones inside of the kimberlite, you can get different populations of diamonds. And this first hole that they reported, they only hit one diamond. And a lot of people are not aware of why that's so significant. Why it's significant is the phase that they took that sample from was very fine kimberlite. And that means that it doesn't have very good carrying capacity, but they still found a diamond. And this is indication that as you get into the better phases of that kimberlite, that you should be getting more diamonds. They have their second hole, I think, is the best looking core that they've got. It's coarse kimberlite with very good diamond indicator minerals in there. And I think that is probably where they're going to get the best results, which is the next. They got hole 2, and hole 3 is looking quite interesting as well. It's not fine grained like hole 1. It's got some coarse kimberlite to it, some fine kimberlite to it. So I haven't seen enough drill core from that hole to really get a good assessment, but out of hole 2, I saw exactly what you want to see in a kimberlite. Now, I also believe that because they're in relatively close, from a geological perspective, they're in close proximity to the Victor mine. And now what made Victor very exciting was it's different than a lot of the kimberlites that were found and mined in Canada, in that it had very low grade. It was only about 1/4 carat per ton, but the diamonds were spectacular. And so they carried a very high value per carat. And that's what made it a successful mine. I was fortunate enough to be at the PDAC one year when De Beers had brought a run of mine diamond parcel from that Victor mine. And they had parcels from run of mine from their other mines, and it was, you could tell without any microscope or any hand lens just how special that Victor diamonds were. That it was like almost all of the diamonds were clear and had very good shapes to them. And these are the kind of diamonds that carry a very high value. So in this news release of the one diamond, now unfortunately the company didn't take any pictures of the diamonds, or at least they didn't publish them. I think they should. if a company is going to describe those diamonds, I think that they should show those diamonds. It would be like finding gold and saying, "Yep, we found gold, but we're not going to show you the assay results." I don't think that that's the way you want to go. But they described it, they didn't show it. But I did see some very interesting information about how they described it. They said it's clear and free of inclusions. That's exactly what the Victor diamonds look like. Transparent and colorless, so very clear, and it was a fragment of a larger diamond. Now, the fact that they didn't show it is probably because it was a micro diamond and probably was broken off of another micro diamond. But in the diamond world, sometimes even one diamond can mean a tremendous amount. Say, for example, that you find one diamond at the surface. Now, usually you don't, even standing on top of a high grade kimberlite, you won't find any diamonds in the surface sampling. So you find one of those and it can be really, really important. And I think that the reason that this is so important is that they found it in kimberlite that really doesn't have good carrying capacity. It has poor carrying capacity, yet there's still a diamond in it, and probably more than one. It's just that they took a very small sample from it. They also mentioned that additional heavy mineral analysis from this section of core reveals one eclogitic pyropalmandine garnet with ilmenite inclusion, 6 chromite grains, of which 2 fall within the diamond stability field. Now, here's another mistake that I think the company made. When you describe the chemical composition of indicator minerals, which can be very important in the assessment of the diamond potential of a kimberlite, and you describe them and some having fallen in the diamond stability field, the company really should publish that information, because the trends that you see in the chemical compositions of diamond indicator minerals can give you an idea of whether you should find big diamonds in there. And what you're looking for is you want to see if they're falling well into the compositions that represent the diamond stability field. If they're just a few and they're all on the edge of the trend, well, that's not telling you much. It could just mean that you need to get more indicator minerals to get a better idea of the trend. But nonetheless, if you're going to say that they fall within the diamond stability field, you certainly should put the chemical compositions out. And I'm very hopeful that in future news releases, when they come out with their results from the hole 2 and hole 3, that they take good pictures of the diamonds and they publish those pictures, and they take if they're going to talk about the diamond indicator minerals, that they publish those chemical compositions, because again, for people that understand these things, it can be very indicative of what you should find in there. And another thing is that Victor had a distinct chemical composition to the indicator minerals. And so if you want an idea, if they're looking at something like Victor, those chemical compositions could tell you that. And again, it's like you're finding gold but not telling anybody the assays. They really should publish all that information. And again, I hope that they do. So stay tuned for more. I got to give them another bit of advice here. Dr. Michael Gunning said Northway is fertile, a clear and cloudless. I think what he really meant is that it's diamondiferous. To say it's fertile leaves the implication that it has a very high grade to it. And you won't know that until they do a lot more analysis. You could say that it passed through a fertile portion of the diamond stability field. But just to say that Northway is fertile can leave some people with the wrong impression. And, you know, in diamond exploration, you want to put as much science out there as you can. And these guys are new to the diamond exploration business. And I think that as they learn more about it, they'll put more of this data out there. They do have a very seasoned guy, their QP, I think he's mentioned in this news release down here, is Kevin Keevy. And he's not the QP. I think he's giving them advice on the project, but Kevin Keevy was involved with the discovery of a lot of diamond types in Canada. Really sharp diamond guy, and they're in good hands with Kevin. So stay tuned for more news on VR Resources. Copper Road Resources is a sponsor, just started a couple months ago, and they started drilling at their Batchewana Bay project in Ontario, and they announced that just off the early drilling, Copper Road intersects broad zones of visible copper mineralization at its Copper Road project in Batchewana Bay, Ontario. They've got two key targets that they're drilling right now. One is called the Jogran Porphyry, and they said in this news release that they intersected broad zones of copper mineralization from 4 meters to 198 meters. And another one from 4 meters to 141 meters. Mineralization is exhibited as chalcopyrite, molybdenite, bornite, pyrite, pyrrhotite, disseminations, and in quartz veinlets, hosted in quartz sericite, pyrite, altered quartz monzonite porphyry. And then not very far from that porphyry target is the Richards breccia. And there they announced that 2 of 4 holes encountered wide intersections of copper mineralization from 76 to 113 meters and 80 to 129 meters. The mineralization at Richards consists of chalcopyrite, pyrite, pyrrhotite, chalcocite, aggregates, dissemination, and veinlets hosted in a chlorite, sericite, carbonate, pyrite, altered breccia. I know that's a lot of geology, but that's the kind of, you need those sulfides to find the copper and other minerals, and that's exactly what they're finding. John Timmons, who's the president and CEO, stated, and I quote, "We're eager to see the assays from the JR zone. Over the past year, we completed 4,200 meters of diamond drilling and have established both the Tribag and JR zones as large-scale at-surface copper, moly, gold, silver targets. The JR zone is in the center of 30 kilometers of mineralization with 2 past-producing high-grade copper mines, the Copper Corp to the southwest and the Tribag to the northeast." End quote. As you can see here, these are the sulfides that they're talking about in the drill core. Some very nice looking sulfides. And I think they've got a map here that is quite interesting. Yes. So here is where they think is the top of the main porphyry. And over here is where you find this Richards breccia pipe. Now, these breccia pipes are often very high grade, and they alone can be mined. Sometimes they're very highly profitable mines. And as you can see here, they're starting to take shape of some very good mineralization at the very top of this Richards breccia. Now, this is a new hole here, this is a new hole here, and this is a new hole here. I'll be very interested, and I think what you're going to see is that they'll continue to expand on this mineralization that they saw in these black labeled holes. And I'm quite optimistic that they can return some very good grades, because they did in these intersections up here over 1%, half to 1% and over 1%, very juicy copper numbers. And something else, and here's the porphyry, and that's the kind of stuff you want to look for in a porphyry. And they got some quartz veins coming up into that. Very interesting looking stuff. Now, what is very difficult for me, I'm very bullish on copper, but finding good copper exploration stories is very difficult. And especially finding one that is close to infrastructure. I think these guys are about 20 kilometers from a major highway, and they've got a very large land package. And there was past mining and lots of mineralization on this project. And so it's a hell of a good project. And now they're just starting to roll up their sleeves on drilling, and they're already finding the juicy kind of material that you want to find. So if there's investors out there looking for copper companies, there's not a lot to choose from in the exploration phase, especially ones that are in mining-friendly jurisdictions with infrastructure all around them, past mining on their project, lots of copper mineralization, lots of past production. That's the story on Copper Road Resources. I've done a couple of interviews with their management, as they are a sponsor, and you can find those on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or also on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Now, Puma Exploration is a really exciting story for me. And what they announced on August the 23rd was that Puma Exploration intersects multiple occurrences of visible gold at depth. So initially, why I got interested in this company is these are all the high-grade intersections that they found in the first 100 meters. And as you can see, there's very good distribution of the high-grade gold. And then these stars represent where they found, they're starting to get deeper, going down to the 200-meter level. And look at all the visible gold that they're finding. And it's associated with these other zones of high grade. This is quite spectacular, and I don't think they're getting a lot of credit for the likelihood that they're going to announce some very good drill results from where they've got all this visible gold associated with their past drilling, where they hit a lot of high grade gold and didn't hit a lot of the visible gold. So this is very exciting. And another thing that's quite exciting about the project is that they've done a significant, here's some of the visible gold. You can see some sulfides in there as well. It's really starting to get a feel to me like this could be an orogenic gold system. And those can be very spectacular and profitable mines. Here's, you can see where the link zone is, and they've been focused just on a small portion of it, but they've stripped away the surface cover, and they're finding that those veins continue for quite a significant distance beyond the area where they've drilled. They've got another zone down here that looks quite spectacular. Another one up here that's associated to this geophysical anomaly. More here, more over here. They've got a large land package. These faults are really important because they are the conduit that brings those gold-bearing fluids up to the surface. And as you can see, they've got a large land package and quite a spectacular project. When you look at, one of the things that I look for in is continuity of high grade. You can't just have randomly distributed high grade and it's too hard to mine it. You mine here and you've got great numbers, you mine 10 feet over and you got nothing. In this case, you can see great continuity in the first 100 meters of drilling, and now you've got great continuity of the visible gold. And so stay tuned for the news releases from Puma. They are a sponsor of my shows. I've done an interview with Marcel Robillard, who's the CEO of the company. And I'm quite optimistic about their chances to deliver a lot more high-grade gold in their pending assay results. All righty, so there you go. Had a good group of companies to talk about today. Some of them are sponsors, some of them are not sponsors. Whether they are a sponsor or they're not, all the companies that I cover in my reports, they have to they have the same criteria. They've got to have the right kind of projects with the right kind of drilling results or the potential for drilling results. And I'm really focused on that because I spent 30 years in the exploration business, and I've had great mentors that have shown me what to look for in the various kind of projects that I follow and report on. And you can consider me biased like anybody that has an opinion. My biggest bias, whether the company is a sponsor or not, if I put my opinion out there, I want to be right. And that's the same thing, bias, that everybody who has an opinion on any subject can say the same. But I always recommend that you do your homework. You speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions to assess your risk profile, and then do your homework. Go to these companies' websites. Go to check out the interviews that I've done with management. I think it'll help you to understand the companies and make logical decisions about investing. And whether you're looking at the companies that I follow or even all the way up to the blue chip companies in New York, you want to do the same thing. You want to understand what you're investing in. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk